In today's video, we are going to look how do we estimate rolling betas, right? So in our previous video, we discussed how to calculate weekly, monthly, or yearly betas, but what that technique would do is it would take certain window, right, and then calculate its beta, and then it would move on to a whole new window, right? So for example, if we wanted to calculate the beta for the January of 2011, we would just take the January data, and then for the second case, if just in case we were calculating monthly betas, then we would just take Feb and then estimate its beta. This is what we discussed previously. But what if we wanted to calculate rolling betas, and just in case it can be daily, weekly, monthly, right? But the idea is to have a rolling beta. And what rolling beta is, we would, let's just say, take these 30 days if it is daily, and we want to keep a 30 days window for estimation. We would take these 30 days, calculate a beta, right? And then we would exclude the first observation here and include another observation from here. So we would move towards this window and calculate a beta. Then we would calculate a beta for this specific window. So what we would have is daily betas for each symbol, right? Obviously this can be done for weekly data, for monthly data, but for this example I'm going to use the daily data. So okay, so what we are going to do is we're going to use the same data set that we used in our previous video. We have prices, and then we have S&P 500. The prices are for 4 different stocks: Apple, General Electric, Microsoft, then we have General Electric, and then we have GM. Okay, and there are basically 2 ways of doing this. One is the built-in command in Stata, which is called rolling. This is the built-in command. You do not have to install it from the internet. And the second one is using the Asreg command. It is a user-written command, and you'd have to install this. And the reason these 2 commands although produces the same results, but the reason for discussing 2 different commands is that this rolling command is quite slow, and I would demonstrate it in this video, that even for these just 4 stocks and 10 years of data, it would take quite long to estimate rolling betas. So that's why if we have larger data set, or even for the smaller data set, Asreg would produce the same results but with quite efficiency. And the reason for discussing again these 2 commands is that sometimes the user do have confusion, and that is because people prefer built-in commands because they sometimes are not comfortable with the user-written commands. They are not sure if these user-written commands would produce the same results, and that's why one of the ideas is to demonstrate to the user and show to them that whether these 2 commands would generate the same results or not. So starting with the data, we would load the data, and we would generate stock returns and market return as we did in our previous video. There is nothing new about that. And for working with this data, we would have to do X2 set, and X2 set is, we tell Stata that our data is a panel data. If it is time series data, then you can use TS set, but in our case it is a panel data. So we have different cross sections and different time periods. Okay, but the issue with this is that we have this symbol variable and we have this date variable. So what we want is, if we want to tell Stata that we have a panel data, then we would use X2 set, the name of the variable that stores symbols, and then the date, but it would generate an error. And the reason is that Stata wants this symbol to be a non-string variable, that is a numeric variable. So symbol is a string variable, right? String means it is a text variable. So what we would do is we would convert it into, we would code it, convert it into numeric. So if you have an ID variable, that's fine. You would use the ID variable over here, but I do not have it. So I'm going to use encode symbol. We do have a tutorial on encode command, and generate a new variable that would be symbol code. We do have this symbol code. It is coded blue, and so although it looks text, but at the background there is a numeric value. So that isn't the case with this symbol variable. Okay, so now we would actually set, but using symbol code. Okay, and this time it won't give us any error. So we have a strongly balanced data, and the starting date is 3rd of January 11, and it ends on 30th of December 22. Okay, so to demonstrate the idea of how much time consuming this rolling window command, this rolling command is, and how efficient this Asreg command is, we would need some system to measure the time that both of these commands consume. So we would set RMSG on. So it would, after each command, it would display the time it took to execute that command. We would execute these two commands and compare their time. So let's start this. So now after each command, we would have this line of code or output that would show us that how much time it took to execute that command. So I'm going to execute this command. So rolling window would be 30. Remember, we are not telling it which is the variable that stores the time, but obviously we have actually set we have told the Stata our time variable and the cross-sectional variable, so it would take the time variable from here. So it is equivalent to writing this, right? So whether you write the date over here or not, it doesn't matter, because it is going to take that variable from the xtset command automatically. Then we are going to give it a saving option, and what it means is that we want Stata to save a file by the name of rolling command. You can give any name you want, and then replace options within this saving parenthesis, because if there is a file already generated by the name of rolling command, it would just replace it. After colon, we would give our regression or whatever command we want to give it to, whichever model we want to use, right? So this time we are going to simply use OLS regression. We would regress stock return on market return. So we execute the command. It would start the execution, and for each symbol, there are 4 symbols. It would take some time. So till that, I would pause this video and get back to you as soon as this command is executed. Okay, so the command had been executed, and it took around 292 seconds. That's around 5 minutes, right? So it took 5 minutes just for 4 symbols, right? And imagine you have more than that and more than the time period that we have. So it is going to take quite a lot of time. So now let's execute the Asreg command. So let's first execute it, and then I'm going to explain what this command would be, how this command would be constructed. Okay, so we did Asreg, right? And it just took 0.65 seconds, not a whole second, right? So before moving forward, let me also show you the results. So this was the file that was generated with the rolling command. This is the data, and it is giving us the start time, the end time. It took 30 days, but obviously these are not these are trading days. That means effectively these are just 20 days, right? Okay, and this is the beta and the constant of this Apple stock. And for the Asreg command, it won't generate a new file, but rather it would give us all the data over here. This is the data. Let's just move towards the time period that rolling data is starting from. It is starting from the 1st of Feb, and for the 1st of Feb, the data from the Asreg command, the beta that we are getting is 1.0212, which is equivalent to the beta that we are getting from the rolling command. This is the data for the rolling command, and this is the data for the Asreg command. So you can see that they both are similar, except for these additional things that we have received, but I am going to explain that in a while. So once you are sure that these two commands are generating the same results, now let's ignore rolling command and let's focus on Asreg because it's quite faster than rolling command. So let me switch off this timer so that we do not get this time output after execution of any command. Okay, so how this Asreg command is constructed? First, we use, this is the buyable command, so we use by sort symbol because we want the Stata to execute this command for each symbol. Then we write, after colon we write the Asreg command, then the independent variable and the dependent variable, and after comma we have an option of window, WIND, and within parentheses we would give the variable name and the window. It is mandatory that we give the variable name. If we do not give the variable name, it is going to give us an error. So in this case it is 30. Remember, by default it means -30. So whether you write -30 or just 30, it is going to consider it the same. Then there is the idea of trading days. Now remember, I showed you that it is not going to take 30 days. So number of observations for this case is 20. Then we have 21 number of observation, then 21 number of observation, and so on and so forth. But the idea is that if we say 30 days window, it isn't going to take 30 observations. This is what is also mentioned in the help file of Asreg. This is where they explain this idea if you wanted to read it further. This goes same with the rolling command and Asreg command, so you do not have to worry about that. But the idea is that it is not going to take 30 observations. But for some reason, if you wanted to have 30 observations, that is, instead of having these calendar days, you want 30 trading days, then what you'd have to do is you would have to generate an ID variable. So what we would do is for each symbol, we are going to generate an ID which would equal to the serial number, right? What it would mean is that for each day, it would assign a value for each symbol, right? It will start all over again for the second symbol. And why I need to do that is, let me drop these additional variables that have been generated, because if I again run the Asreg command, it would give us an error that there are already these variables. Okay, so now instead of the date variable within the window option, I'm going to use the ID variable that I have just generated over here. So in this case, it is going to take 30 observations, exact 30 observations. So this command is same as over here. We have just replaced date with ID. Okay, now you would see that previously it were lesser observations, 20, 21, 20 observations, but now it is taking all 30 observations, right? And now so it doesn't mean that now it is going to take a calendar, but rather 30 trading days, right? What about these? Because these do not have 30 observations, but they had been calculated. So for that, there is an option within the Asreg command, which is called minimum. So what it is going to do is it is just going to show us the results for the for the cases where it do have at least 30 observations, right? So let me first drop again these variables that we have generated, and if I execute this asrec command, you would see that these are missing values, and it would only show us the estimates where we have at least 30 observations. And obviously, because the window is 30, so maximum 30 observations. This window and this minimum can be different, so you can say that there should be at least 29 observations, and in that case the first one would be 29, right? Or any other observations where the number of observations are lesser. Okay, then we are going to look into the window option. We have already discussed window, but window, let me show it from the help menu. So what it means is that, window, if you just write two observations, how should the window be written? We write the window, then within the parentheses we write the range variable. In this case I'm using the ID, then from and to, right? So it is not necessary that you write all these three observations, all these three parameters, but it would work with two parameters at least, right? So it can be 2 or 3. But if you are going to write 3 parameters, then you would have to explicitly use the signs. You would have to use -30, 0, right? Okay. So what it means is start from -30 and from -30 till 0 observation. So what -30 means is that if it is going to calculate the beta for this value, the beta for this specific value, then it would take all these 30 observations, right? So starting from the date at which it would estimate till previous 30 observations. This is how it was calculated, right? But what if you didn't want it to include, right? You wanted to limit it till -10, right? So start with the first observation, like -30, and not take all these observations, but rather limit it till -10. So these are around -10, right? So it would take just these observations to calculate the value. So again, the help file have clearly explained this idea. If you are going to use all these 3 parameters, then you'd have to explicitly use the minus sign. Plus do not need to be mentioned. But if you are just going to use 2 parameters, then that's fine. Again, if you want to calculate forward-looking window, then that can also be done. Okay. Then by default, it won't give you the fitted or residual values, but if you use the fitted option, then it would give you the residual values. So these are the fitted values and then the residual values. Then we have the idea of recursive window. What recursive window means, if I give a recursive window of 30, what it would do is it would start from the first observation, take these 30 observations, and then for the second case, it would again start from the first observation and include the 31st observation. So what recursive means is that the starting period is fixed, but the ending period keeps on moving till it reaches the end of the data. So let me remove these additional variables, use recursive options, and you would note it would take some time. And you would note that as it keeps on moving forward, the number of observations are increasing, and it would increase till it had included all the number of observations, right? Which is here for the apple, all the 3019 observations. Then we have this exclude option. What exclude would do is if we want it to exclude certain observations. So let's say when it is calculating the beta for this observation, what I want is that it should take all the previous observations, 30 observations, but not this one, right? So exclude ID 0000 means the date on which we are going to calculate. Okay, so you would note that, sorry, instead of having 30 observations, it is taking 29 because it is excluding this particular observation, this particular row for the estimation of these betas. And again, because I haven't used the minimum option, so we are getting these additional data. Then we have no constant if we do not want to have a constant term in our regression from the origin. Then we can have standard errors, we can use new best standard error, robust standard errors, and then this same asret command can be used to estimate Fama-McBath regression, but for that we would have a video of its own. So thanks for watching this video, and do subscribe this channel. And by the way, the example dataset, the link for the example dataset is given in the description.